For USCFootball.com, I'm Keely Eure here with Shotgun Spratling for instant analysis of USC's Tuesday practice of BYU week. And after a 62-33 beatdown in the Coliseum, I think we were all curious how the Trojans would respond on Tuesday in their first open practice of the week. And Shotgun, I don't think it was that great, and I think Dante Williams agreed as well.
No, it wasn't good at all. Dante Williams called it terrible, actually. He said they came out, they didn't have energy, and, just getting beat down by your rival, you'd expect them to bounce back, you're to, have some fire about them, especially going up against a top 25 ranked opponent coming in this weekend, a team that's better than UCLA. They could put an even worse beat down on them. And instead, they didn't have the energy. They were not, were not running back from plays. Dante Williams was getting onto a couple other of the players for that. And eventually he called them all up in the middle of practice and chewed them out a little bit in the middle of practice. And they finished off with some things. And Dante Williams said he's trying to motivate the players, trying to do that, but he needs some help. He needs some players. He said the best teams are the best leadership comes from player-driven leadership, and it says that seems to be an issue with this team, and it's something that we've worried about all season, and we've seen it over and over that they just don't have everyone on the same page, and today was just another example of it.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you expect any players to step up in that leadership role, or do you think this is just how this team is going to be for the final two games?
I mean, honestly, it's too late in the season for that. I mean, if you would expect your seniors to have stepped up by now, maybe you see some of the young guys, maybe they feel like they've, put in the work and they're doing enough that they can call out some other guys. But that's what they need. They need accountability from the players themselves. I know that's something that Dante Williams has preached since he's taken over as an interim coach, preaching accountability, all the small things he's tried to do. And I feel like he's still trying. He's trying and making that effort, but it's just not hitting home. They need the players to be on each other. They need to have some inner locker room discipline. There needs to be the kangaroo court or whatever it may be, like you would have in an MLB clubhouse. You need to have those guys on each other when they're making mistakes, and it doesn't feel like that. It feels like everyone just, this is a small mistake. Don't worry about it. And they pass the baton on to someone else and try to have someone else be the one to be the disciplinarian when they need someone to step up and take that role. That hasn't happened for this team, and I just don't think it's going to be something that you'll see in the last couple of weeks that'll happen.
Mm-hmm. Keaton Slovis was not dressed out again today, so Jackson Dart is the presumed starter heading into the week. And it was interesting. Jackson Dart grew up a Utah fan, so he already has some animosity for BYU. His face kind of lit up knowing that who he'll play this weekend.
Yeah, definitely. He's a Utah kid, and he said he grew up going to Utah games and watching against BYU. He was at the USC BYU game in 2019 as a recruit. So he's seen this team up close. And it's also interesting, there's some similarities there. This will be his second start. It was Keaton Slovis' second start in 2019. And it'll be interesting, will BYU try to give him some similar looks that they gave Keaton Slovis? That drop eight coverage that they, that really USC struggled with because they couldn't run the ball. Now, it may be a little bit different because USC can run the ball a little bit better this year. And part of the reason that Graham Harrell and I talked to Seth Dagey about it, that, the BYU was dropping eight was because USC had those elite receivers out there. They could put four receivers out on the field at a time. They don't have that anymore. And Graham Harrell kind of mentioned that. You asked him about the evolution of the offense, and he said that's one of the biggest things is the personnel is much different, so that's why you don't see a lot of four wide receiver sets. You see a lot more two tight end sets because they just don't have the talent and depth that they had at that position previously. So I think we'll get a little bit different looks from BYU, but I'm sure they're going to throw some of that in there because they're going to say, hey, this worked so well for us 2 years ago. Let's try it out a couple plays just to see how this young quarterback deals with it. So I think that's going to be one of the things. Can USC help Jackson Dart out by running the ball and running the ball early instead of waiting too late? Dante Williams mentioned that this week as well, that he wishes that they would have ran the ball a little bit sooner in that UCLA game. Can they come out from the very beginning and run the ball? But will they have Keontae Ingram to run the ball? That'll be a big question as well because he did not dress out today. So, it's going to put a little bit more workload on Vivai Malepeai this week and Darwin Barlow as well. If Keontae Ingram's not available, I think that changes the game plan a lot for USC because he can do so much for them running the ball. But I'm curious to see how USC attacks this week, the rest of the week, because today just was not adequate enough. And, even though Jackson Dart's going to have revenge on his mind, from growing up being a Utah fan, I think it's going to be tough if the rest of the team around him is not playing.
Mm-hmm. Now, circling back to something you said a little bit earlier, talking about the wide receiver talent, you asked Graham Harrell straight up, why do you think there's been so many issues catching the ball this season? What do you have to say?
He said, it's a great question. That's the way he responded to it. He said that they've had drops, and you're going to expect some drops when you throw the ball as much in the style of offense that they run. But he said that the percentage has been much higher this season than it has been in the past, and it really hurt them in that UCLA game early in that red zone trip, trying to take an early lead, and you have a couple of drops. And he said maybe it's a little bit of concentration. He gave them credit for settling in and playing better in the second half, but it's just unacceptable. And we saw it again today at the practice field. A wide open touchdown potentially for one of the starting wide receivers. He drops it. It's just those are the type of things, if you see it in practice, you know you're going to see it in the games, and that's been what we've seen from this USC team all season. They don't catch the ball well enough, and that changes what you can do as an offensive coordinator, some of the things that you want to call, which is why I think they have to lean on the run game even more, because the offensive line has done a decent to good job, both in pass protection and run blocking throughout the season. The wide receivers have not been consistent enough for my liking, so I think that you got to rely on the run game and what it has been consistent for you a lot more.
In that sense, what do you expect for Saturday, given we don't know the status of Keontae Ingram right now? Do you put Darwin Barlow in the spotlight, or do you go with old reliable and Devon Malapai?
I think Vi showed last week what he's capable of, that he's going to get those hard yards for you, and picking up, especially he's got a nose for the end zone when you get down inside the 5-yard line. So, I think you trust him. He's a reliable guy, especially you're going up against a team that's got a lot of older players, because BYU always has that with some of the Mormon guys that go on missions. So why not rely on your 6-year guy and give him an opportunity? His final home game is going to be senior night as well. There's going to be a little bit of sentimentality there, and I know Jackson Dart said he wants to win for the seniors and give them an opportunity to leave on a good note from the Coliseum. So, I would rely on him and give him that opportunity, and then, just as the game goes and how the game flows, then you make a determination if you need to go to Darwin Barlow. Obviously, they're going to play 2 backs. They're going to use guys. You're going to rotate guys in there to keep guys fresh. So if Keontae Ingram's not available, Darwin Barlow should get plenty of run anyways.
Alrighty, Shotgun. I feel like you covered it all already. Any final thoughts before we wrap this one up?
We did see Corey Foreman back, so that's a positive injury news. Even though Keontae Ingram, Keaton Slovis were both out today, getting a couple players back. Will they be able to make an impact on Saturday? Obviously, they had 30 guys that were not dressed on Saturday on the scholarship players, so hopefully they can trim that number down a little bit. And getting a couple guys back would be really important. Though we didn't see Michael Trigg, I think that's another one fans would like to see back out there. But second week in a row, we saw him a little bit on last Tuesday, but then on Wednesday he wasn't there or wasn't in pads. Today USC wasn't in pads. He wasn't in pads either. So that tells you that he's probably not going to be available on Saturday either. So hopefully they start getting some of these guys back, but it's not looking great on the injury front once again.
Alrighty, that's going to wrap it up for USC's Tuesday practice of BYU week. For Shotgun Spratling, I'm Keely Eure. For more, check out uscfootball.com.